Welcome, everyone, to the Baker's Ed podcast. I'm Dina Hamid, and I have with me today Chanel McBean, owner and operator of Buttercream Beaniie, a custom buttercream cake and pastries dessert shop in Ontario, Canada. Prior to starting Buttercream Beaniie, Chanel worked in the law sector for 7 years, then decided to pursue her real passion in baking. Now, Chanel is a rock star baking and pastry art student at Humber College in Ontario, Canada, and has competed on the Food Network's hit TV show The Big Bake, proving to her daughter and to all of us that, I quote, you can do anything you put your mind to. Truly an inspiration. Welcome, Chanel.
Thanks so much for having me, Dina.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you too. The Big Bake. That is awesome. I don't think I've ever met anybody who's been on a TV show.
That is so funny. I thought that too. And then when I was there and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm here. This is crazy. So that's good. Thanks.
It's super cool. So maybe we can get started by you telling us a bit more about who you are, how Buttercream Beanie got started, and, in other words, why baking?
Yeah, of course. I've actually been baking for quite some time. It was something that I used to do with my mom and my grandma. And I would just bake here and there for friends and family. And I would always get these remarks and comments like, Chanel, why don't you do this? Why don't you sell this stuff? Or why don't you, people would love that. And I would be like, I'm just happy to make it for your birthday or Thanksgiving or whatever, what have you. And I was just thinking to myself, the amount of time someone had said that to me, I would have probably been rich by now. So when I
Yeah.
coined the idea, or when COVID hit, actually, I decided, why not? Like, you
Yeah.
keep saying why you shouldn't do it, but you're not saying why you should. And you really love and you have an inherent love for baking. So why not? So that's
Yeah.
how I got started. I just applied for school and went from there. That's where Buttercream Beanie was born.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
I feel like the pandemic made a lot of us go, why not? It definitely had that effect on me too, for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those things. I mean, obviously, we all didn't know what was going on, and we
Hmm.
all had to sort of adjust. And a lot of things were scary.
Yeah.
But, um, when you say why not and actually go and do it, which again is the scariest thing ever, starting a
Hmm.
business, scary, but it would turn out to be really rewarding, and I'm learning every day. So that's what I just said. I'm so happy that I did
That's
it.
awesome. And did you get anybody saying to you, start like, oh my God, you're going to start a business in the middle of a pandemic? Are you crazy?
Yeah, a lot of people. Um, and again, it was one of those things where I was saying to myself, the amount of times that I was told I should do it when I wasn't, like, quote unquote interested,
Right.
it really just outbalanced and just said, you know what, this is what you want to do. You have to give it your best shot. I'm one of those people that I put 110% in everything that I undertake. And it's okay if I fail. It's okay if I
Hmm.
make mistakes along the way. But as
Hmm.
long as I tried and I know I gave it my best, doesn't matter. So that's why I kind of just didn't listen to those. Oh, why are you starting in the middle of a pandemic? How are you going to start a business? It's hard enough as it is. All of those things, I didn't listen to it.
Honestly, it's a good thing that you didn't because I don't know about the rest of the world, but at least, and actually, I'm not sure about the rest of Canada, but I can confidently say in Ontario, I'm pretty sure we experienced like a boom in the baking
Yeah,
industry. Lots of baking
definitely.
businesses. That's why they even like eased the restrictions for home based bakery businesses to get started at home. Like during the pandemic, the government was like, yeah, we're going to support this a little bit more because people needed other ways to make income, and there's so many talented bakers and stuff just hiding their talents under other occupations like law.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What law?
Yeah, so I'm really happy that you joined the baking industry. That's awesome. So before you went to school, what I gather is that your experience or your education in baking was self-taught.
Yes. Prior to 2020, when I went to Humber College, when I enrolled, all self-taught. I was the one who was on YouTube learning how to
Yeah,
type buttercream rosettes, or
thank God for YouTube.
learning how to put together a stack cake. I'm definitely a YouTuber, definitely listening to my grandma's old you know uh, what is, I think it's like her home ways of doing things,
Yeah,
because my grandmother, who's born in Jamaica,
nice.
um, she didn't measure anything, and baking is a science,
Yeah,
so it's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little more of that. So it was just definitely learning from those types of aspects, but definitely self-taught.
that's awesome. Honestly, I think that kind of knowledge being passed down, that generational knowledge, it makes for some of the best food, most delicious
Yeah,
food,
yeah.
honestly. Yeah, I think that's great. So right now, are you still currently a student at Humber? Like I cuz you started in 2020, right?
I started in 2020, but I'll be going back to finish my last year. Within that year, we have a co-op and a few other classes still left over.
Mhm.
Again, I kind of hate, but it's just one of those things. COVID again
Yeah.
hit, and we didn't know how to deal. And for me, going back to school wasn't suited best for me. So now
Right.
that things are getting better, we're adjusting, we're doing better with things.
Mhm.
I'm definitely going to finish what I
You
started.
Oh, I see. Okay, because yeah, I was just a little confused about the timeline. Because from what I know, Humber College is a 2-year program, but that makes a lot of sense, especially if it shut.
Yes.
Like if they weren't doing anything in person, that's really hard to learn how to
Yeah.
bake
Yeah.
online. Yeah,
Online, exactly. I mean, granted, that's what I was doing before, with that being YouTube home baker, but for the most part, you want to know that you're spending your money and you are getting the best that you can,
right,
because again, you're spending money, but you want to experience it at the fullest. And even enrolling in 2020, there was a couple of restrictions and a couple of things that were changed due to what was happening
right,
in the pandemic. So not that I didn't have the best experience, but I guess it was just a little bit different for me. So
right. And because I'm going to be asking you about your opinion on the program and stuff like that. So I guess we should just preface this conversation with anyone who's like for anyone who's listening, that Humber College's program wasn't, running at its full, I guess we could say, potential because of the
yeah,
pandemic. So the year experience might have been, you know, how can I say this? It would have been altered a little bit than what it would have been if you had started school prior to the pandemic. Yeah.
yeah.
So like dive right in. So we know why you decided to go to school, but what do you like so far about the program?
So far, I really like the teachers and the
Mm-hmm.
educators. They're very passionate about what they're doing, so it makes it really easy to sort of get in depth and get into the knowledge and the content that they're providing,
Right.
because they're super passionate about it too. Um, so those are things that I like. And then I would say the content as well. Um, Only because even though, YouTube is, has a plethora of things that you can search up, having it sort of structured in a way that um, you would in, I guess, another job or another career, kind of helps me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
someone who likes structure. So it was nice to know, like, today we have business management and tomorrow we have, you know, bread baking 101. It was just
Right.
nice how it was set up for me.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I need the structure. Like I'll probably be going to school for the rest of my life because it helps me. I don't know, maybe I've just really internalized that, the institution of school, but
Yeah.
I kind of need it in my life to keep learning for some reason. It's really hard for me to keep learning on my own. Sometimes, like being that YouTuber like you were, I was never really like that. I
Okay.
learned from like family and stuff, but it's hard for me to structure in that time to make time like to make that time to watch all
Yeah.
those YouTube videos and make on my own. So the
Yeah.
structure of school actually really helps me dive into my craft. And now working in the industry always helps too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I'm really curious about uh you were saying that the instructors are really passionate and they make you feel really passionate about it too. It kind of radiates off of them, makes you really excited. Do you find that the rest of your classmates are kind of similar to you, or what is it? What are the students like?
I feel like for the most part, yes. It kind of depends on where you fall in the spectrum. Because in our class, we had a lot of different people that were in different stages of their life, so to speak. And, some, never baked before, some have experience, some work outside in bakeries. So I guess it just depends on where you are in the student spectrum. And for the most part, I would say yes, because even though it doesn't matter where you are in that spectrum and we're all learning the same thing, it still makes a difference when your teacher is passionate about what they're doing, because then you kind of retain the knowledge a little bit better,
Mm-hmm.
or at least have an experience where you can remember what's being taught because, this person is, passionate about what they're talking about.
Right. Yeah. And do you find that like you and your other classmates, I don't know if your professors have even asked you guys this yet, but do you all plan on entering the industry when you're done, or is it kind of a toss up?
I think it's kind of a toss up. I spoke to a few people, and a couple of my colleagues. Some of them haven't baked before, so this being their first experience, say they they want to try bread baking, or they want to try working at custom cakes, or
Mm-hmm.
so it's really cool to see the spectrum. But it's a toss up, is what I would say.
Yeah. So for you specifically, because this
Mhm.
is about you, for the most part, it's about buttercream beanie, right? Do you plan on what do you plan on doing with that when you're done school?
Um, when I'm done school and paying off my debt,
Oh my God, I
I'm
hear that.
hoping and structuring something for myself where I can be able to do it full time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right now it's a little tight because I have a 3-year-old who
Yeah.
is, full of energy and full of life. Um, Getting back to school, that was always hard to juggle. And then just life in general. But I think this is definitely something that I want to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
So going to school to sort of gain more knowledge and learn more of the why this is this way
Yes.
um, definitely intrigued me. And so that's where I'm definitely going into be able to do this full time. That's what I want out of this.
That's awesome. That's a great goal. And the whole wanting to learn why. Is there what is the baking theory side of
Uh,
the curriculum like at Humber College?
so I personally think that it's pretty dry and like very, because most of it was online.
Oh, right,
So
that's
we
true.
didn't actually have like the theory with the teachers to like interact with. So
Yeah.
it was a little dry. But they've tried to do their best. We had different things. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of it. I think it's called Kahoot. It's like a way
Yes.
to, you know, I guess put questions and have answers and have your team or your students interact. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought they thought of neat ways to interact, because otherwise listening to a 3 hour lecture is just insane.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
most people, even if you're interested in the content, for most people it's pretty insane.
Yeah, it's
So
hard.
I found that they tried to, but it was still pretty dry in terms of their delivery, being that it was online for the theory based stuff.
Right.
Um,
That could have been because of the pandemic too, I'm pretty
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
and like I said, with you take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
You try to, I guess, do your best with that. That's how it was delivered, and that's how I did all my classes, or all of the theory based classes.
Right.
Sorry. So I made do with it. Um, yeah, I would say that that was probably the only thing that was a bit difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but because I wanted to know why I bake with sugar and
Mm.
what sugar does and what salt does, because I wanted to know that, it was
Mm-hmm.
interesting to me.
Right. And did you find that you were kind of delving deeper on your own
Yes,
time? Yeah. That's
yes.
awesome.
I always like to, I call my kitchen the lab. This is an extension of my lab. This is where I store stuff, but the kitchen, definitely my lab.
Nice.
And I always, when I had free time, I would just bake something. Doesn't matter what it was, just try something new. So once I was like in school now, and now we're learning again why sugar and what sugar does. Um, then I was like, oh, whoa, let me try this. This is fantastic. I got to try and see what this does. So little things like that got me more excited. And that's why I was like, yes, I made the right decision. I'm very happy with this right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it sounds like you were taking that theory content into the lab and then experimenting with it, basically. You're
Yeah,
conducting your own experiments.
yes.
So, in like an ideal world, let's pretend the pandemic, wasn't a situation. What would you like the baking theory class to look like?
I would love if it was in person. I feel like
Yeah.
I could probably listen a lot more and understand a lot more if I was there in person. Still would like it to be interactive somehow. I don't know how, but somehow if it was
Mm-hmm.
interactive.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe if there was like, uh, I mean, I do enjoy my textbook because even on my own time, I go through my textbook and read other things.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if we had, I guess more pictures or more things to show, more tangible things to show in the theory class. I know it's a
Like
lot of
diagrams?
content. Yeah, diagrams and things of that sort, because that helped. Again, for me, I would just take it home and try it at home, but not
Yeah.
everyone's like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be helpful if they had
Right.
that. More diagrams, more things tangible to grab.
I'm not sure, like in terms of curriculum planning and stuff like that, if educators in this stream are allowed to assign homework. I have no idea. Like if the Ministry of Education would allow that to be built into a course for homework to be assigned, I am not sure. But
Mhm.
if it would, it's almost like it would be nice if there were assignments based on what kind of, you know, based on what you are already doing. They introduce a concept, maybe have some diagrams, videos, or whatever explaining the concept a little bit more, and then you guys get assigned an experiment to conduct
Yeah,
on your
that
own
would be
time.
pretty neat too.
Yeah.
I would agree. That sounds actually really dope. Like that would be
Yeah.
really cool. If
Yeah.
they could capture that, yeah, you're onto something. If they could capture that, that would be great.
Honestly, like, well, I'm really excited because I haven't really, shared this yet, but I'm going to be teaching, I'm taking over for one of the instructors at Niagara College. He's going on vacation, and I'm taking over for him in July and August the baking theory course. And I know
Nice.
right now that it's all online. And I went to Niagara College. I did the program there, and I'm like you. There were some things in terms of the actual curriculum and the way that the courses were structured that I think could be improved, and they are listening to the students and they're implementing those uh, you know, those asks. But the professors are stellar. Like they really know their stuff, and like you said, they're so passionate. Like they made it worth it. Honestly, they really did. But
So good.
yeah, so I'm super excited to do that, and so it's really nice to hear this directly from you, like this kind of feedback, because if there's any way that I could do that or even suggest it, I definitely will, because I agree with you. The You guys are reading the Wayne Gislin textbook, right? Professional Baking. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's the standard across Canada for all of the BPA or baking and pastry arts programs.
Yeah.
And it's not that heavy on the science. So I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more like definitions, a little bit of history, like, but it's very it doesn't go really any deeper than that. And then there's like a ton of recipes. There's like over 300 recipes or like something crazy
Yeah.
like that. So that's good. But yeah, I agree with you. I wish it did go a little bit deeper into the science. Yeah. And, you know, I think from what I understand, they it can't go any deeper than that because like you were saying, all of the students fall on a different level on the spectrum, so not everybody's going to want to go deeper, than the basics that Gislin's book provides. But I'm sure there are creative ways to do it for the ones who are like super passionate and want to know more. We can brainstorm more. If you ever think of anything else, just tell me and I'll
Okay,
try
I
to
will.
yeah, and I'll try to push for
I'm
it.
sure I will.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
So, other than for the baking theory course, is there anything else specific to the program that you would like to see improved? And this could be more of like a generalization.
Um, see improved. Uh, I feel like this might go into a little bit more in depth. I feel like for the most part, so you have, business management, learning how to pay your employees, learning what, you know, taxes to deduct and things of that sort. And that's great. But more, I would say more, I don't know how to explain it. I would
It's
say
okay. Take your time.
a little bit more in depth with the business management because
Hmm.
there are other things that, you know, we should talk about, and or at least should be introduced to. And I thought, I mean, granted, I still have a year left, so maybe they're going to, talk about it. But for the most part, it doesn't seem like it's a part of the curriculum. For instance, I'm talking about like liability insurance. When you open a business, that's something that you should consider and take
Mm-hmm.
into and have. But I don't think they talked about that when they were talking about like the business management part. If you wanted to open your own business, I feel like you kind of have to, I guess, maybe enroll in another program in order to really talk about that, which I'm not sure.
Hmm.
But I think it would be nice if they sort of went more in depth
Right.
um, on how to improve business management, that sector, that part of the baking program.
Right. Is there a text for that course? The business course?
Um,
Is there a textbook for that or no?
No, there isn't. So that's
There
what I
isn't.
mean. Like that would be something that would be nice if they sort of talk to us about,
Mm-hmm.
things that you might need or what should have when opening your own business. They
Right.
talk to us about, you know, again, when you have your employees, and that's all fancy and fantastic, but how do I get to having the employees if I don't know what's next in the business process? That's what I would kind of wish that they could have
Yeah.
expand on.
Yeah, honestly, if you ever get the opportunity to share this feedback, 100% tell them. And there's even a book. The name of it is escaping me right now, but I will share it with you and I'll also include it in the description link of this episode. I'm pretty sure it's something along the lines of how to start a business, like a baking business. And it goes through a lot of those steps. I haven't read the whole thing. I literally just saw it when I went to the bakery showcase uh, earlier this month at one of the booths. There was I think they're called Annex Publishers. Yeah, they're the ones who published the book, and it's just like a small little book. So like I feel like they realize that there's nothing really written like that for baking students or the baking industry in general. And so they produce this small little text. And I'm pretty sure it goes through some of the legal steps that you have to take when you're starting a business in Canada. The thing with that is that if somebody really wanted to take on this project and give us a really good text, they would find out from province to province what are the different things you have to do because it changes from
Ah,
province to province, municipality to municipality, like the legal things that you have to do. Like what I would have to do in Hamilton might be different to what someone would have to do in Toronto. to open up a business.
Great.
But yeah, that's really good feedback, and I'll share that book with you afterwards. Um,
Thank you.
I was wondering too, have you ever heard about the Red Seal certification?
I have heard of it, but it wasn't through school.
No.
So that was my own, knowledge. Actually, my dad talked to me about it. My
Mm,
dad is a chef, and
nice.
he was super excited that I was getting into baking because he said, this is something you really like. So he was talking to me about it. So it was a conversation with my dad. It was not through school, which again, I don't know if they're going to talk about it coming in my last year or not, but it would have been nice if we were introduced or even if it was even, talked about. It would have been really nice.
Is it something you're interested in pursuing on your own?
Yes, yes. I don't know how it's gonna happen yet, but it's definitely it's definitely gonna happen.
Do you mind me asking why? Like why? Because you don't technically need to be a Red Seal chef to work in the industry. So I'm really interested as to why you would want the certification.
You're right. I don't need it. But I'm just again one of those people that I like learning why, and that to me is a part of the why. Um, Things go the way that they go
Mm-hmm.
in terms of baking anyway. So that's just something I always try to find or always sort of set up myself with some goals to pursue or to find more knowledge about and see if it works for me. And that was something that was on my list. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, I at least need to find out more about it before I decide to pursue it. But it's something that I want. I know I don't need it, but it's something that I want.
I'm in the same boat. It's definitely something I want to, and it's like you were saying. I think it's a good goal to have to keep pushing, yourself to keep learning, and getting the Red Seal too will also help the industry, like to give you maybe sort of a bigger picture of motivation. We don't have a whole lot of Red Seal certified chefs anymore up and coming. So a lot of our Red Seal chefs are, at retirement age or reaching retirement age. And so for us to have apprentices or that because there's two streams of the education, right? There's the apprenticeship stream and then the college stream, right? And the college stream is what I'm kind of going through both. I did college too, but I'm also technically an apprentice because I want my red seal. And so for us to be able to be apprentices, we have to work in bakeries or in places that where a red seal chef is there who can sign off on all the skills that we're learning. So if they're all reaching retirement age or retiring and they're gone and there's nobody to replace them, nobody will be able to be an apprentice because there won't be any red seals to work under. So getting your red seal, if you want like a little nugget of motivation, you could be one of those people who then will take on apprentices and, you know, continue that stream of education for the baking industry. Keep it alive because it's a good
Yeah,
one. It's a
keep it
good one. It's a
alive.
good alternative too to the college program.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the red seal is important is just because I mean, not everything has to be so regulated and standardized, but it is kind of a marker of the knowledge that you know and that you've done a certain amount of hours in the industry because you need like 7,000 hours in total between school and actually working on the job to get your red seal. So, they say it takes 10,000 hours to master any craft. So, it's kind of an indication of somebody who's done it for quite some time and would be capable of then passing on the knowledge to other people. So I think it's a great goal to have, and I'm actually so happy to hear that you want to do it. Yeah. So I was also wondering if you had ever heard of the Baking Association of Canada.
I think we briefly touched on it in one of our classes at school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the reason being, I think they were talking about some of the competitions that Humber tends to put on
Mm-hmm.
throughout the year. But again, being due to COVID, some of those competitions were canceled.
Right.
Um,
That's
I
tough.
think yeah, and coming into it, seeing, oh my gosh, that's something I want to do, or even
Yeah.
if I don't want to do it, just want to be able to see it and experience it,
Mm-hmm.
and not having that kind of sucked. I'm not gonna lie, kind of sucked. But I
Mm-hmm.
think for those who were enrolled sort of this year
Mm-hmm.
and onwards, I think they're back on now, because I follow the Humber Baking and Pastry Arts page, and
Yeah,
so
same.
some of the things were posted there. So I'm like, that's really nice. At least they get to experience it,
That's
because
awesome.
I did
Really happy
not.
for them.
So
Yeah.
that was how
That's a bummer.
we talked about the Baking Arts Association. Like, that's how we touched on it, but it was very brief.
Very brief. So, the Baking Association of Canada is sort of one of like the baking industry's governing body. So they advocate for us. Um, they represent us whenever there's conversations with the government, uh, or like the Ministry of Education, all of those larger um, bodies, and so they're also have a membership and benefits for those different tiers of members, and they're supposed to be there to give all players of the baking industry support. So I'm really curious to, I'm trying to ask everybody who I interview, you run your own home bakery business, and you're also a student, and BAC is supposed to support you and give you benefits of some kind. Have Do you have ideas of what kind of support or what kind of benefits you would like from, you know, that organization who's supposed to support you?
I think that I would love having support in the sense of just providing more knowledge on um, sort of like the business side
Mm-hmm.
of baking. I think it would be great if they at least provided opportunities where, because even if they did, I don't know about them, and that's not anyone's fault. That's me, I guess, kind of not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's not me, because how do I find out about this information if it's not talked about, or if it's not, you
Yeah.
know,
They should be
you know,
reaching the people who need the support. Yeah.
yeah. So
Outreach. Yeah.
yeah, so that would be a great way if they were, able to do that. Um, what else would I think would be great support? I guess having mentors or advisors to
Mm-hmm.
sort of walk you through your steps, people who've already been there would be nice. So connecting somehow with that type of those type of people would be great.
That's
But
awesome.
again, only because I haven't had much interaction, or
Mm-hmm.
even an explanation of what the Baking Association of Canada does. I don't know where I stand in that place, like in that
Right.
spectrum.
No, that's fair. Honestly, that idea of informal training, it's come up before in like another conversation that I've had. And I think it's important because we have so many people who are great entrepreneurs and who could just from their experiences, they could really help baking students figure out how to do that, or even come into the colleges and be like guest lecturers or something, and the students get to ask them whatever questions that they want. You know what I mean? Like, I think right now things are a little bit, everybody's kind of operating on their own in their own little world in their own little pocket, and I really would love to see something just grab them all and bring them together, you know?
That would be really neat.
Yeah. So
Really neat
yeah.
if that could happen.
Yeah, that's the sorry. Oh my God. That's the goal with this podcast, is to try to hear everybody out, see what they need, and then figure out somehow, I don't know how, to give them what they want. So this is like the first step, but the business advice and mentorship. So those are two really good. Thank you, Chanel. Those are two really good takeaways,
All right.
honestly. So I want maybe let's go a little bit broader now
Mhm.
and talk about the baking industry in general. So you've been operating this, your home-based business for a bit now. What do you think is the one thing that needs to be improved in the baking industry? Or maybe there's more than one thing. I don't know why I said one thing. Could be more than one thing.
Um, One thing to improve. Uh, oh, I would love if this was something that's talked about more.
Mm-hmm.
So, stigmas in regards to home bakeries. We're just as qualified, just as, accepted as if you were to purchase a cake from a storefront,
Right.
a grocery store. It really depends on what you are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So not to look down upon home-based bakeries because I don't see why. If you look at their, Instagram page or their web page
Mm-hmm.
and you like their content, um, don't kind of expect um, any less because they're a home base.
Mm.
I would love if the stigma of that would be sort of eradicated, really, because not everyone wants to or is in a position to have a storefront for you to go to
Right.
purchase their goods. You know
Right.
what I mean? So that would be really nice to sort of get rid of that
So,
stigma.
two follow-ups.
Mhm.
The first one being is who, and like it doesn't need to be necessarily like finger pointing, but where do you think the stigma is coming from? Like where are you feeling it from the most?
Um, I'm thinking it's more from, I guess, uneducated people. And I feel like that's the case because, you know, say I make a custom cake. And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
The word custom, people may not like that word, but it's a word. Custom
Mm-hmm.
means so many different things. And if you're unwilling to pay for the service,
Right.
then you might say, well, you're a home-based business anyway. So, well, what does that mean? You know what I mean? I've come across very rude comments in
Mm,
regards to having a home-based business. So I definitely don't mean it for everyone. It's not for
of
everyone. It's
course. Of
just
course.
it works for me. And it would be nice if the stigma wasn't attached to it because you're more than welcome to purchase a cake or treats from any
Mm-hmm.
place. I'm not putting any place down.
Of
No
course.
storefronts, major retailers. I'm not putting anyone down. I'm just saying that because I operate a home-based business doesn't mean I'm any less.
Of
So I
course not.
definitely would say it's from, I guess, uneducated people,
When
not
you
knowing.
when you mean when you mean uneducated, you mean like customers who might not be well versed with what it takes to make a cake, or what everything that goes into actually running a business at home or something like
Yeah,
that. Is that what you mean?
that's what I mean.
Okay.
Yes, that's best suited. Sorry.
No, no, that's okay. And, honestly, I think that that's a very good point, because what a lot of people don't realize is that home baked businesses that like yours play a very important role in like the baking landscape, even on a local level. So a lot of bakeries who have brick and mortar locations, they don't necessarily have time to make custom cakes. So the heroes that are actually taking up, that slack are people who run home-based businesses who can
Mm,
do that. Because other bakeries, they might have larger production schedules and so many different products that they have to make on a day-to-day basis that their team, I'm also speaking from experience. We do that where I work, but it's not where we make our money, and we don't actually have a lot of time for it. So we take a limited amount of custom cake orders. We try our best not to turn anybody away, but it really isn't the main thing that we do. So home bakery businesses are actually very important for that reason. Customers don't realize that if you don't support them, you're not willing to pay those prices for the works of art that these people are creating, you're not going to get that service and from a lot of other people.
yeah, and that's
Bigger bakeries.
essentially.
Yeah,
With that being said, it's like again, I'm not. I'm only sort of speaking to negative comments that were
of course.
in regards to baking. A lot of people are very, wowed by things that I
Mm-hmm.
do and things that home bakers do. And they're like, I don't know how you do this, but you did it again. And I'm definitely coming back. So there's always those people too. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful and happy about those types of things. But in regards to the stigma that you're a home business, you're a small business, I think it would be nice to sort of change that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It would be really nice to sort of shake that stigma because small business, home business doesn't mean like any less than a Walmart or, if anything, you're getting a lot more only for the mere fact that, this person's putting in a lot of time and dedication and love into what they're baking. So that's the only
Mm-hmm.
thing that I would say.
Mm-hmm. And I almost feel like part of the maybe the reason why there is, this stigma, or some customers are not well versed, is because there is a saturation of home based businesses, because there's a lot of people who are doing it illegally, and they're not licensed, and they haven't gone through the steps that they're supposed to go through. So, you know a lot of people are just operating in situations where they're not, like I said, licensed to do so. So they're popping up all over the place. And so there isn't really a way to kind of regulate the standard of product across the board. Do you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I totally get it. I totally
yeah.
understand.
So I almost wish that there was some kind of support for people who want to start home based businesses to tap into, so that they could understand more about pricing and costing, and you know have that resource, so that everybody is kind of doing it at the same level, and there isn't this like weird expectations of getting something that usually would take somebody 5 hours to do for like $50, when really it should be like $250. Do you know what I mean? Like, that there needs to be something that's gonna help level the playing field a little bit, or give the pricing and the value some equilibrium, because I think it's all over the place. So the customers too, they get confused. They'll be like, well, just last year I got this and this cake from somebody for this cheap. How come you're trying to charge me this? And so it can be confusing, and there it is on, I think, the home based businesses to try to educate their customers as much as possible. But if we could lift that burden off of the home base, or share that burden with the home based businesses, and like offer again more education for the customers and for people who want to run these businesses about pricing and costing and everything, that would be great too. So I'm going to write that down.
Yeah,
Wow, I'm
that
getting
would
so
be
many ideas from this conversation.
yeah, that would be so awesome. On Instagram, I actually have like a bakers group where we're connected with a ton of bakers from across the nation and in
That's
some other
awesome.
countries as well. And sometimes we chat about those types of things
Mhm.
because we're saying, I've been going through this struggle, and when you don't say anything, you don't know if someone else is going through it. And
Yeah.
so when you speak up and someone says, "Hey, I went through that too," it's like we all now have like an inherent understanding that this is a thing. How can we, do better? And you're
Mhm.
right. If you can educate on your platform to sort of help bring back that equilibrium, that'd be awesome because how else are people going to know?
Yeah, if we don't tell them. Yeah,
Exactly.
and also I don't think it's a like we shouldn't have a vinegar approach to this. For other home businesses, if we find out that this is what they're charging probably below the standard, I think it just is going to take a nice conversation with them, because not everybody's goal as a home-based business is to make a ton of money. Some people are just doing it as a hobby, so they don't think that they should be charging a whole lot because it's just a hobby, but they don't realize what that does for other people who are trying to make money off of this. This is could be their only source of income. So yeah, I think you're right. There needs to be more conversations there in that arena for sure.
Mhm.
I agree. Well, it's been, a lot of what needs to improve and all that stuff, but let's talk about the positives, some of the things that you love about the baking industry. What do you love about it?
Um, Baking. Okay, I like the industry. What do I love about the baking industry?
I mean, maybe more
Um,
as a sense of a community, or maybe you don't feel like there's a sense of community.
no, I do definitely. That's why
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned it. So
Mm-hmm.
like again on Instagram, we have a bakers group. They're called Cake Straight Up.
That's cute.
It's such a cool and inclusive space that I love being able to talk to different bakers across the nation and in other countries and sort of, talk about one thing that we have in common and then learn about other things that we have in common too. Um, it's anything from piping skills to fondant woes and little things
Mm.
like that. So
Fondant woes.
we have a community, and that's nice to have. That sort of
Yeah.
inclusivity is great. Um, in terms of the industry, I also like you know what you can produce
Hmm.
out of the industry is like it literally is the world is your oyster. Like you can
Yeah.
do just about anything. If you're someone who's into chocolate, you can create anything you put your mind to. If you like baking cakes, if you like cookies and brownies, cheesecake, you name it. There's just so many different ways to do it,
Yeah.
and no one is like there's no real or wrong way to do it. It's
Mm-hmm.
just this is how you do it. That's awesome. That's great, and I like that kind of aspect as well.
Yeah.
So those are things that I think are positive that I like.
Yeah. Baking is limitless, and honestly, it's inclusive in nature. That's what I really like about it too. In terms of accessibility, I understand there are people across the world who don't get the privilege of being able to do what we do, but I mean like on a theoretical level. Let's say everybody did have access to it. Anyone can bake. And that's actually it's a really great thing because I don't that's what really attracted me to baking from the beginning. I saw it as like this artistic medium that anyone can do or anyone what am I trying to say? Anyone is allowed to do. Do
Allowed
you know
to.
what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So I agree with you 100%. That's a really really really. So, how about as a baking and pastry arts student? Is there anything you want to celebrate there?
Um, being a baking and pastry arts student, is there anything I want to celebrate? Um, well, I would, without saying how old I am, I would like to celebrate going back to school,
Yeah.
because I had I've been working in law for quite some time, over 7 years, and I kind of felt like, you know, I kind of felt guilty for leaving it because that's what I went to school for
Mm,
initially.
mhm.
And not a lot of my colleagues were able to find a job within that sector, and that happens with school, with anything. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what you go for; you may not find something what you went to school for. But
Mhm.
I was able to, and I'm grateful for that. So now that I've done that for quite some time, and I decided to go back to school again, I just want to celebrate going back to school because um, it kind of reminds me and helps me think that you're never too old to learn something. It doesn't matter what you have going on. You can it knowledge is just limitless, as and I am sort of happy, actually not sort of, I'm very happy that I got a
Mhm.
chance to do so because I get to show my daughter that you can do anything you put your mind to. I
I
didn't think
love
it was
that.
possible, but it's possible.
It is.
um, I also have this conversation with my friends all the time. I say that I'm a part-time baker because
Hmm.
I'm a full-time mom.
Oh yeah.
I run my own business. I'm going to school, like so. Like I always say, I'm a part-time baker. I don't do this full time. I want to do it full time, but I don't do it full time yet.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm gonna celebrate going back to school. I think that's very positive for me, and I'm very happy that I was able to.
Yeah, honestly, that it's such a wonderful thing to see when somebody goes for what they actually really want to do because life is so short and it's so short. It passes by so fast. I'm genuinely happy for you that you decided to go back and do what you actually really love because we were just talking about before, we started recording our daughters and how fast they're growing up and they're only
Yeah,
3 and 2, but still.
It's
life
so fast.
passes by in a flash. So yeah, I'm so happy for you. I get so sad when I encounter anyone who tells me that they hate what they do, because
Yeah, it's oh
it's
God,
actually
it's like
really heartbreaking.
it's
It's
really
awful.
heartbreaking because it's like, man, I'm thoroughly enjoying what I'm doing here. Like this is
Yeah,
so
and everyone should get that.
insane. Everyone should have, access to that.
I
Should
know.
be able to like. It's just, yeah. I feel you. I
Yeah,
feel. I
it's a
don't
blessing.
feel nice when I hear that. It's
I
like, oh,
know. It's awful.
that's
It's honestly really sad. And so we touched on this a little bit at the beginning of the conversation, but let's project like 10 years from now. You know,
Hmm.
what does the future look like for you and Buttercream Beanie?
Ah, what does the future look like? I would love to, um, as we talked about, get my red seal because
Yes.
the opportunity
Yay.
to learn and then teach others is is invaluable to me. I think that would be so awesome. And again, it's about something that I'm passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved baking, and taking it serious was like such a, and not that I didn't take it serious before because I really liked doing it, but sort of in my mindset where I'm actually doing something and I'm, learning more about it, that to me is taking it serious. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that I did that. So red seal for one. Something else, I would, I was actually at school and I was talking to, this was my bread baking professor.
Mm-hmm.
And something that he was talking to me about was consulting. If you,
Ooh.
come up with a recipe and you want to consult for someone else, what he was giving us and saying was make sure you have a contract. And I was like, from the legal aspects of everything that I've learned, I already
Mm-hmm.
know that. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's really cool to be able to do that. So consulting might be in the future for Buttercream Beanie. That would be
That's really
awesome.
cool.
I would love to come up with a recipe for a company and go from there and, do that. And lastly, I would say um, somehow becoming an educator. I would love to be a part of that. I want to
Mm-hmm.
be the passionate instructor that someone comes into school and sees because I'm so passionate about baking. I hope that doesn't change. So those are
I
three
don't think it
things.
will.
I don't think
I don't
so
think
either,
so.
but just in case, those are three things that I think that is in the future for Buttercream Beanie, and I'm super excited about.
That's awesome. That's so nice to hear. Fellow and aspiring educator. That's really exciting. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Yay. I'm so happy through this. I'm finding people that are like, my tribe. I can like yeah, talk to about all of this stuff. That's really exciting. And for ever becoming an educator, the red seal as of right now, it's a requirement. So that's good
Mhm.
that you're on that path and you're going to get that done. And honestly, if you have any questions about it, because I know that like trying to convert the schooling that you did through the college to the apprenticeship schooling, it can get kind of mud, like it's a little bit muggy. So if you need any, I went through it and it was hard. It was hard, but yeah, I mean, we could talk about that after. But I'm just putting
Yeah.
it out there. If you want any, help with that, I'm like more than happy to tell you what I
Thank
did
you.
so that you could do it too if you want. Um, the last question I like to end off with.
Mhm.
Actually, you know what? Before that, is there anything going on new for Buttercream Beanie or anything you want to like plug in here to tell people about for the business? Honestly, I
Um,
will say I've been following you on Instagram and your stuff looks really good. And you're also really good. I don't know who does your social media like marketing itself, but you're really good at it. And your pictures are really nice. Yeah. If you do all of that yourself,
I
honestly,
do.
I applaud you. That's hard. People don't understand how difficult that is to do. And you're a mom. Like,
Yeah,
I get it.
it was so crazy. I like doing it, but as like creating content, it's so hard
It's so difficult.
because you have to schedule time, you have to
Mhm.
make the time, and then you got to create the content. So like,
Mhm.
you have so many ideas in your head, and you're like, oh, I would love to get it down. So I'm working on that.
Mhm.
Anything to sort of look forward to. I'm working on a website. and sort of
Yeah, I saw
streamlining
that.
how to order and things of that sort. So that's always good, because I'd love to make it simpler,
Mm-hmm.
easier, and more effective for people. Um, and then you're just gonna have to listen out and watch out and see what else is coming up because there's gonna be tons of stuff.
Yeah, I'll include all of the Buttercream Beanie links in the episode description. And also, do you want to tell us what area in Ontario you're in case of anyone listening?
I'm in Etobicoke.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Most people don't know that, but Toronto, Etobicoke, not all the same, but the same for
Yeah.
those that
Yeah.
live here and know. So that's where I am located.
Awesome. So, yeah, the last question that I like to end off in is what piece of advice would you give someone thinking of joining the baking industry or, in your case too, becoming a baking and pastry arts student?
What piece of advice? Um, I would say listen to the inner voice that says that you can do it, um, and tell yourself positive and give yourself positive reinforcement because it's tough when listen to naysayers, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also tough if you are sort of doubting yourself,
Yeah.
um, and just sort of find an inspiration and go with that. My inspiration was my daughter. um, she inspires me every single day, and just her being um, made me want to do it even more.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
again, listening to that little voice in my head that said I could do it,
Yeah.
and then going through with it was the best advice that I could say. Like, just best thing that I could say. So I know you usually have like the little devil angel on your side, one
Yeah.
saying don't do it, and one saying yes, you can do it. For those who think that way,
Yeah.
listen to the side that tells you that you can do it, and just actually go and do it. That's the most important part. Actually go through with what you're saying you got to do. And I think that would be good advice to give someone if they wanted to get into baking and pastry arts.
100%. That honestly, I don't think there's anything more to say. That was really beautiful. And I agree because we know ourselves better than we think we do. If you're like someone who self-reflects and you're self-aware, listening to that inner voice will pay off, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough, Chanel. Honestly, this was such a great conversation. And, I can't wait to see what happens with Buttercream Beanie. I'm going to be, watching. And hopefully come down there and visit. It's a little bit hard to go anywhere right now with the two little ones, you know, but I will come visit. I can't wait to actually go and see everybody that I'm interviewing in person and
Awesome.
eat your food.
Awesome. Can't
Yeah.
wait. Can't wait. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much. Well, I'll talk to you later.
All
Have a
right.
good
Thanks.
day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.